from the mouth of the one that I'm all in love with, girl. Like the words of a preacher, the ears of a deacon, your eyes don't see the same when you're sleeping. I'm so in love, in love. Guess I'm going to Arizona. I can't walk around without you. Yeah, yeah, baby. I can't walk, I can't even talk, like baby. The rhythm change, baby. Oh, you're always on my mind, baby. I've never had love like you, baby. Oh no. If I had to choose between money and you, girl. Girl, you said your sister saw me coming out the holiday, and the woman I was with used to be your best friend. Well, she must eat glasses, 'cause that sure wasn't me. Your sister's got a bad case, mistaken identity. I could've easily give you an alibi. All you're gonna do is turn around and call me a lie. Your sister done lied on me. She ought to take it all back. All I got to say is this.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening. And I hate to disagree with Tyrone Davis, but this time it was me. You are listening to Issues That Matter. Thank you for taking some of your time this evening to engage in what we pray is an enlightening conversation. I'm Calvin Jackson. I'm just conflating everybody. I'm Calvin Lester. Stephen Jackson is on his way. We've been spending too much time in these different meetings, but he's on his way. So we want to take a few minutes before we get started to always thank Johnny B for giving us this platform. You know, in the day that we live in, we cannot take for granted the opportunity for our people to tell our own story. And so on a day like today, because there are some things that are happening in this world that we're going to talk about more specifically, but there are some things that are happening in the world that we, just calls out for us to be able to speak to our people about what's going on with our people and speak truth to power. And I just really thank Brother Johnny B for providing us this excellent platform to speak to you, the people in the community, about the things that are going on both in the city, the state, the parish, and the world. And so we would be remiss if we didn't thank Brother Johnny B for providing us this excellent platform to discuss the issues that matter. We're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to kind of get into a number of different stories that are happening. But I want to say this. I've been trying to do a little bit better about my weight, John, and I went to the doctor, and he gave me that speech like, hey, I can try to keep you here, but you got to do your part. So, I'm trying to eat better, and doggone it, if I didn't go to a meeting and they had poppin' pizza. Now, pizza is my weakness, but I can say with all sincerity, the best pizza in the city of Shreveport is Poppin' Pizza. Sister, downtown, y'all need to check her out. So look, we're going to come back on the other side of the break, and we're going to get into some of these stories. You're listening to Issues That Matter. Today is Tuesday, April the 18th, and we will holler at you in just a quick minute. Stick and stay. Okay. It is them. I think it says it's you, girl.
Oh man,
Because it sounds like
Is it
I'll
loud?
be good to you.
Calvin, what you think about that? Oh, we- see how rusty we are.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. We are back. Thank you for taking some of your time this evening to spend with us. As I said before, I'm Calvin Lester. That's Stephen Jackson, fresh from a meeting dealing with the issues of the day with our people. I love our people.
Love them.
Got to love our people.
Got to.
If you want to participate in this conversation, there are several ways you can do it. You can give us a call at 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459. Or if you're watching on Beyonce's internet, and it is still Beyonce's internet, we don't care about Taylor Swift. It's Beyonce's internet, and it should have been her Grammy too. Give us a holler, and we will acknowledge your situation. Brother Jackson, how you doing today?
I'm here.
Gotcha.
I'm here.
Gotcha.
It
Public
is-
service, baby. Public service.
That and everything else, man. I'm here. I'm glad to be here. We thank Brother Johnny Antoine for the platform. I think this might only be my second show of the year. It's been ripping and running so much.
Hey, man.
Bruh, it is good to be back
Right.
behind the microphone. Good to have our listeners here. And again, we thank Johnny Antoine for providing this platform to come to talk to our listeners, talk to the audience about issues that are important to you. And so we are always looking to hear from you. As Calvin said, feel free to be active in this conversation because this show is about you and for you.
Yeah, so one of the things that, and we always said, we appreciate Johnny, and we talk about how important the platform is. Something happened today in court in Delaware that shows how important and powerful these platforms are. Some of you are aware that there's been this gigantic lawsuit between Dominion Voting Systems and Fox News, or Faux News. You will recall after the presidential election of 2020, Fox News was lying to people and saying that Donald Trump was still the president, that he had won. That was not true. And they were going so far as to saying that the Dominion Voting Systems, these are people who make voting machines, right? That their voting machines were switching votes from Trump to Joe Biden. And the reason why he lost is because, doggone it, they were messing with it. They was, that whole the stop the steal thing, right? And they just flat out lied. And they perpetuated that lie for months and months. And of course, that lie came to fruition on January 6th when Trump got up and told people to storm the Capitol, and they did. Well, Dominion Voting Systems is a pretty large corporation, and they have a lot of lawyers, and they got those lawyers to work, and they sued Fox. And not only did they sue Fox, they sued, I want to say, Rudy Giuliani, this guy named Powell. I mean, there were a whole host of people that were talking real reckless, as they say in the neighborhood, about them. They filed a lawsuit, and the initial goal of the lawsuit was $1.5 billion. Billion with a B. Well, it was supposed to go to trial. The trial was supposed to start today at lunchtime. At some point during the day, they stopped the actual hearing, and the lawyers got in a room. And when they came back from the room, they announced that there was a settlement. Fox is going to pay Dominion Voting Systems $787,500,000. $787 million, right? And this case was about the First Amendment. Don't let those Fox people tell you that they have a First Amendment right to lie on people, because the First Amendment does not protect lies. The First Amendment says you have a right to speak. You have a right to speak your mind, but there is no right to lie. And, you know, the lies that they told were to make their audience feel good about an election that they had lost, right? And so Fox was taking a position, well, as long as it's newsworthy, you can print lies. This lawsuit said, no, you can't. If we can show that you lied and you knew that it was a lie and you published it anyway, you are still legally responsible. And that's huge.
Are we in headline?
No, we talking about stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we talking about stuff.
I didn't know where we were.
Yeah, no, we talking about topics.
Gotcha.
I just wanted to bring that home because, and I'm gonna bring it around full circle. There is another organization that calls itself a newspaper that loves lying on people, printing misstatements. And they call themselves he likes to call himself a journalist, but he's not. He is no different than Fox. And just because it's newsworthy and he sells papers telling people that folks that's black is white and this, that, and the third,
I
you
think
can't
the
do
problem
it.
you have here, the problem that I have with the settlement is it never actually gets to court, and you never get to actually litigate the facts, the merits, so that you can have the case law out there to say, because now all you do is you point to where they settled the case, but you still have things like Sullivan versus New York Times and stuff out there. And so you have a settlement, but you don't have any, and you're a lawyer. I think y'all call it case law.
Right.
You don't have anything that you can reference in the text or a judicial decision that you can go back and refer to. And so, you know, I'm with you. I think, you know, it underscores a great point that the truth should be spoken at all times, and you shouldn't try to berate people at the expense of the First Amendment and hide under the First Amendment. But I would have loved to have seen this thing go to trial, be litigated, and, you know, had something that you could come back and actually hold folks accountable to. Right now, I think New York Times versus Sullivan, with all due respect, is flawed. Because people like to chop your words up. I wholeheartedly believe in the First Amendment.
Right.
And I think it's one. And even when we disagree,
right,
I think the First Amendment is necessary, because disagreement is a part of what makes America America. It what makes any civil society great. So the First Amendment has to be there, even for a dissent.
Right.
Even if I don't like you, it has to be there. But these people who put out propaganda, who put out lies, who put out false statements,
right,
intentionally,
right,
knowing, willfully doing this in the name of journalism, in the name of keeping the public informed,
right,
these scare tactics, they need to be held accountable, and they don't need to be able to be held to the same standard as New York Times versus Sullivan.
Well, I get where you're coming from. New York Times versus Sullivan says that, you know, when you've got one of these cases, you have to prove malice aforethought, that something was printed with reckless disregard for the truth. And for those who are public figures, that's a higher standard and a higher burden than it is for Joe Citizen. The one good thing that the legal scholars are saying about this case is, and I agree, I would have loved for this to go to trial so that we can get a case that says a judge in Delaware did this. This was their argument. Not that you would cite a trial court case, but at least you would have something on the books that you can start building around. But the thing that I'm encouraged is that in all of their pretrial motions, Fox tried to present this idea that the standard is not the Sullivan standard. They wanted to go further. They wanted to go to the point where, well, it might not have been the truth, but it was newsworthy. They were trying to expand to say, yeah, okay, we lied, but we lied about somebody that people want to talk about. So, you know, that's still the First Amendment-ish. We still had a right to say that. And the one good thing is that this judge held them to that standard. Now, for Mr. Whistlebritches that's running around here with his ragging on the email, at some point, someone with resources is going to test his hypothesis. And I think he's going to have a problem because just like Fox News, this guy ain't a journalist. One of the things that journalists do is they check facts. And the thing that really wore Fox News out was the fact that their own talking heads knew that this was not the truth. And they said it. Now, what's probably going to happen is moving forward, you're going to go underground with their communication. Mm-hmm. They're going to lie and just not talk about it. So it may next go around, it may be harder, but then again, it may, to that stockholder or the folks in the corporation, they might decide that, hey, you know what, this might not be the move that we want to make. We might want to back up off of that. And so, that's kind of what that is. So that's one of those things. Mm-hmm. But I was really looking forward to it. And the one of the lawyers that was working on it said, hey, man, they asked him, well, what about the settlement? He said, hey, dude, I've been working all week on my opening argument. I don't know anything about the settlement. He was ready to, get it on. So that was a very interesting case.
Yeah. And like I said, I just, we have to have people held accountable.
Correct.
Because, one of the things I don't even watch the news anymore. I prefer to read it. That's my preference.
Correct.
Because I can get to choose what I take in. It's not, basically filtered to me. And so I don't even watch the news anymore unless it's just something of great significance. I just think, because if I'm reading it and I'm getting to a point to where I'm getting frustrated, I can just stop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Plus, it's hard to put a spin on the words.
Right. Put a spin on the words. You're not reading, but I do know that they use certain words,
right.
To try to trigger you.
Right.
So it's just the sensationalism of it all. That's what it's all about, is getting clicks, getting sensationalism, going out to advertise and say, see, I got this many clicks.
Right.
I got this many visits. I got this many views this
right.
month, this week, this quarter.
Right.
And that's how they're selling advertisements on their website. And so, but you're doing it at the expense of other folks' careers. You're doing it at the expense of other folks' livelihoods. And I would say I'm looking to a crystal ball, but I'm not. But
right.
I would suggest that I think that theory may be tested sooner rather than later.
Right.
With some issues that are moving through, this area this
right.
week,
right?
as recent as soon as the 20th, I believe.
Right.
So, and
right.
I'm gonna hit you up about that, but
right.
and we may share it. But.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that the lawyer said, and I agree, he said that lies profane the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that, and we'll go to our next topic. One of the things that's just always interesting to me is, the folks on the right that pretend to be so, I think the legal term is strict constructionist. Mm-hmm. Those are the Scalias of the world that believe if it's not written plainly in the Constitution, then it does not apply. If it's not specifically referred to in the amendments of the Constitution, it should not apply. There's such strict constructionists on things like the Second Amendment, but the First Amendment not so much. So this idea that any right is absolute, this to me shows it. You do not have an absolute right to lie on somebody and call the First Amendment. You just don't.
Right.
So anyway,
right.
That's that.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And so I don't know, we may take a quick break in a minute, but I know the legislative session is in right now. And later this week, we're going to try to get a couple of our legislators on the phone. I know we want to try to get Gary Carter, and he has some things. And we'll talk about those. We'll talk about his issue. There's one that talks about holding gun owners responsible for theirs. And then the other one was trying to get rid of this state income tax. And so when we come back, we'll talk about some of the issues that have been bubbling up in our legislative session right after this break. You've been listening to 97.7. This is Issues That Matter. We'll be right back.
I think it will.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
And we are back. I'm Calvin Lester, Stephen Jackson. We thank you for taking some of your time this evening to participate in this conversation that we pray is enlightening and educational. Of course, if you want to participate in the conversation, there's several ways you can do it. You can give us a call at the hotline, which is 318-779-0459, 318-779-0459. Or if you are faithfully watching on Beyonce's internet, not Taylor Swift's, we will answer your chat message. We love to hear from you. So before we left, Brother Jackson, you mentioned that the legislature has taken in.
Yes.
And there were several bills, instruments that were of note that you have been kind of paying attention to. So kind of run through some of those pieces of legislation and why we should be interested in them.
We have some interesting legislation. We have some that are serious. We have some that are
clownish. Right.
So we'll just run the gamut. We'll let you all be the ones to determine what category you want to put them in.
What do they do on the radio station? Kiss it or diss it?
Right. You do that. We ain't gonna do that. So Louisiana moves to find porn sites not verifying age of users. And so there's a bill that is being pushed in the Louisiana legislature. The legislature would allow the Attorney General to investigate and find pornographic websites that do not comply with the state's age verification law. Louisiana lawmakers in Louisiana House overwhelmingly approved the measure on Monday and sent it to the Senate for consideration. The legislation would allow the state Attorney General to investigate and find websites that do not comply with the age verification. In preparation, the author of the bill, who is Lori, I hope I'm saying her name right, Lori Schlegel, she's a Republican sponsoring the bill, says, in preparation for this bill today, I went to, and this is a quote, not me, her.
Right.
I went to one of the largest non-compliant porn sites so I could tell you exactly what non-compliance to age verification looks like.
I wonder how she knew.
Well, my question was how long was my question is how long were you there?
You know what's interesting to me
Take a
is,
look around.
hey, kick the tires while you're over here. Get something to drink. The thing that's interesting to me is, you know, the office of Attorney General for the state of Louisiana is a very serious job. It really is. And the current occupant has taken, you know, this idea of trying to expand it. The Attorney General should be doing things like making sure people's voting rights are protected.
Right.
He should be doing, or she should be doing things like not arguing against, expanding African American judges, like they went down and argued. I was there when they argued against that. But you know, becoming the thought police, that's just, you know, but it just goes to show, and this is something prayerfully you will have to deal with, that, you know, too many of these legislators get their bills from, ALEC, the American Legislative whatever Council, and they just basically, somebody writes a crazy law, the Koch brothers write these crazy laws, and they pass them out, and someone does a bill in Texas, and all of a sudden, we need to do this in Louisiana. I mean, legislate to what's going on, just not, you know, doing something to get the headline. Anyway,
So another one, battle over book bans in Louisiana library ramps up in the legislature. Parishes are getting into heated arguments over the discussion of banned books in libraries, which some argue are targeted to attack, which some argue is a targeted attack toward the LGBTQ plus community. The 2023 legislative session, which began last week, is already seeing some heated discussion regarding some bills, specifically the bills targeting access to certain library books. The bill would restrict access to certain materials in public libraries that contain sexually explicit content. Again, Attorney Jeff Landry authored the Protecting Innocence report, which inspired one of the book bills. In the past, A.G. Landry has said, nowhere in this report do we call for censoring or banning of books. But Representative Mandy Landry, we ought to get her on the show, believes it is even an issue that shouldn't be taken up in the first place. She says, I'm not worried about children at the library assessing the material. I want them to go there if they're going to the. This isn't something that we should be worried about. Or is this something to rile people up? I think it's getting too granular because it's not an issue. It's a made up and manufactured controversy. So hopefully it won't make it out of committee. So you got folks fighting over the books in the library, and they're saying they're targeted toward that they're trying to, I guess, indoctrinate students or kids based on sexuality.
Man, listen, I have children. You know, technically they're not children because they're 21. Shout out to Kaylee and Trey. Daddy loves you. Do you know how hard it is to get kids to read? Do you know how hard it is to get kids to read in general? Man, listen, if your child is in the library, bro, you winning. And your child is not in the library looking for pornographic material because the state representative told you they can already get the pornographic material on the phone. Come on, man.
Let me go test the Dewey Decimal
Yeah,
System.
come on, man. Listen, man, if the kids are going to the library, mom and dad, you winning. You doing what you're supposed to. But what it signals to me, and we can have, and I would love, you know what? We need to, and we're working on that, have the chairman of the Democratic Party in here.
Yes.
Because what this speaks to is something that they started doing in California with Proposition 6.
Yes, culture wars.
They're doing a culture wars because at a time where they know they're going to need people to come to vote,
Right.
they stir them up,
Right.
They get them slathered up
Right.
over stuff that does not matter,
Right.
so that they go and vote for this guy and that person when the issues really have nothing to do with the election, but they got to manufacture something to get you mad to come to go vote.
Ding, ding, ding. Which brings me to my next bill.
Okay, we 3 for 3 today.
Louisiana Republican Party wants to ban college study
Man.
of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Louisiana Republican Party wants the state lawmakers to forbid the study of racism at colleges and universities, arguing in a resolution approved Saturday that classes examining inglorious aspects of United States history are too divisive. The resolution passed by a voice vote with no discernible dissent at the state's party quarterly meeting in Baton Rouge, asked the legislatures to pass laws removing diversity, equity, and inclusion departments and agencies within any institution of higher learning within the state. Without citing evidence, the resolution asserts that these programs have bloated budgets and inflamed political tensions on campus.
So here's my thought.
They down there working, ain't it?
Here's my thought. First of all, as in college, as part of, and you remember this from your SGA days, you have the general education curriculum.
Yeah.
These are the things that when you go to college, you're supposed to know. You got to take science, got to take history,
Yeah.
you got to take arts, visual arts or something like that. You got to take speech, math, It's usually done in a 4-year institution. Your first 60 hours of your general eds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of general education is 2 history classes. Usually you're taking U.S. History 1, U.S. History 2, and normally you'll take an American government or state and local government, but to help you, learn to be a citizen, something I think we should do. There is no way that you can teach U.S. History 1 and U.S. History 2 without talking about the Civil Rights Movement, without talking about slavery and things of that nature. This idea of getting rid of diversity, I can solve all of that. That's fine. Let's get rid of it, but let's do it this way. To me, diversity at the LSU is your football team and your basketball team.
Right.
So from my position, if you do not want us studying history, if you will not accept my smart kids, you cannot have my athletes.
Oh.
If you cannot respect my scholars, you will not get my athletes. And let's just do it like that. So everybody in these red states that want to pass these restrictive laws, Florida and Texas, and say, well, we don't want to do critical race theory. We don't want to study the civil rights. We don't want to study, blah, blah, blah. It could be tough in the college campus. That's fine. Don't. Get rid of it. But guess what? Mom and dad, these are the same folks that's going to be hollering for your son to run fast, jump high, your daughter to dunk and all this other kind of stuff. So again, if you do not respect my scholars, you should not get my athletes.
Yeah.
That's my position.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see how much diversity they talking when the LSU, well, I might well say it. No, I can't say it that way. I was gonna say when the LSU basketball team looked like Bird, but Bird is black on the court. I know that because I went there. So you know, if when LSU started looking like, what's the team that they beat? Iowa, where everybody was white, including the high yellow girl, then and y'all losing, then okay, that's fine. Then you know you'll have your Bear Bryant moment where you realize
Bam
that
Cunningham then ran all over you.
Ran all over you.
And he said emphatically said we will never
be out Negroed again, but he ain't say Negro. Yeah.
We'll never be out blacked and outrun.
Yeah. Again. And guess what? Wasn't.
Right.
All of a sudden. Yeah.
And now you got integration.
Yeah. Now you got integration. That's how you got integration in the SEC.
Yeah. Yes,
Sam Bam Cunningham. Yeah. Who is Randall Cunningham's brother who
ran up and down the
man,
field.
Listen, them boys came from California, University of Southern California, and they ran up and down the field on Alabama. They punished them boys.
Right.
In Alabama.
Y'all down there eating cornbread and beans in Alabama. Them boys was there eating salmon
and running past you.
Right. Couldn't slow them down.
The only game now
by the third quarter, Alabama,
bro. Listen, the only team at that time that probably could have given Southern Cal a game would have been Alabama State or Alabama A&M, because that's where the brothers were. Right. That's where the athletes were. Right. But no, man, it's just like I said. It's just okay. What? Oh,
I know we got. I'm sorry. Well, no.
Okay.
Well, this was a good bill, but it met a pretty interesting fate.
Okay. What
Louisiana lawmaker pulls bill to hold gun owners liable. For guns from stolen vehicles.
Okay.
A New Orleans legislator is reeling back his proposal to punish gun owners who have firearms stolen from, keyword, stolen from unlocked vehicles.
Man.
I don't want the NRA to blow us up here.
Right.
Oh my God, they're talking about taking folks' guns. Let me read that again. A New Orleans legislator is pulling back his proposal to punish gun owners who have firearms stolen from unlocked vehicles. Folks, how many times does Wayne Smith have to tell you to lock don't leave your gun in your car.
Correct.
And 2, lock your cars at night. Lock your doors at night.
Correct. They were on TV last night talking about lock your cars.
You know and I didn't even watch it.
Yeah. So they were talking about it last night.
How much of that do we have to do before we start saying, you know what? Because here's what kills me is I wake up, I go to the gym about 4 o'clock in the morning. I wake up. Sometimes I check Facebook and you'll see somebody on there. Oh my God, the car was broken into and the same thing happened to our neighbor 2 doors down. And then you'll see somebody in the comments, well, it happened to us. Well, if you know this is happening, why? I mean, what's going on?
I mean, you got to exercise a certain due diligence. And I'm going to be honest. Hey, one night I got because I left the door unlocked. And that's what happens when you leave your doors unlocked. So you got to lock your doors.
Who does your insurance hold liable for that?
That would be me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. We had to pay for it. We had to take that lick.
If you do something that that if something happens that is a fault of yours.
Correct.
You should be held responsible.
So for me, Louisiana, we have this theory of negligence called duty risk. Right. If we can establish you have a duty to prevent something from happening, if you breach that duty, then you are held responsible for it. It's called duty risk, right? And that's our negligence basis. For me, at some point, I'm calling on the trial lawyers. Let's start trying some of these cases. Let's say Joe Blow has a car, leaves his gun unattended. Joe Criminal goes in the car, takes the gun, shoots and kills Miss Johnson. I gonna sue not the criminal. I'm gonna sue Joe Citizen because, but for
we
him,
are gonna arrest the criminal.
oh, he going to jail.
Yeah, we're gonna arrest.
But the criminal had no money.
Right.
I'm
Civil.
going to arrest
You saying civil? Or
civil.
criminal?
The person who shot her is going to jail
Criminal.
criminally. Period. My issue is with the citizen.
Right.
My position is, but for you leaving your car unlocked,
This would
my
happen.
client would not have gotten killed.
Gotcha.
My client got killed because
You filed a civil suit.
civil suit
Yes.
because you left your door unlocked.
Right.
The concept is called vicarious liability. I'm saying you have control of your gun.
Right.
You left your car unlocked.
The
He
window
got
was
into
smashed
it.
out.
It's reasonable to believe if you leave a firearm in your car,
Right.
it's gonna get stolen.
Sitting out.
Sitting
in
out.
plain view.
Hey, you left the gun in the car. They stole it. You're responsible because what you could have done to mitigate the risk, take the gun inside,
Right.
lock the door.
Right.
You didn't do the smallest, and because you didn't do the small things, my client got killed.
Right.
That's on you.
Right.
Now, it might not be 100% of your fault because you didn't pull the trigger. However, you are what the law calls a but-for cause. But for you leaving the car unlocked, he wouldn't have got the gun. So let's say I'm gonna put him, the one that did the shooting, 50% at fault. I'm gonna give you 50%. So I'm gonna sue you for $1 million. Trust me, Johnny. When lawyers start walking that thing back and start suing these people for giving them the guns or leaving those guns unattended, it's the same thing that happens if you have homeowners insurance and your dog gets out the yard and bites somebody. They suing you. That's your dog. That's covered under your homeowners. Same deal.
So do your car has to be broken into in order for you not to be held responsible?
I'm gonna say if you leave your car unattended, if you leave your car unlocked, I think I got you. If your car's broken into, it may depend on, let's say you had the gun in a one of those gun cases. Mm-hmm. Then you can say, hey, I put it in a gun case, it was under the seat. I didn't expect it, I took the steps necessary to quote unquote secure it. Mm-hmm. Maybe. But
Because the car is
it's somewhat of an extension of your house, but you have a lower expectation of privacy in your vehicle than you do in a house. But it's still an extension of your property. And if the car is on your property, there's the concept is called a curtilage, and that's considered part of your property. So they can't go in it. It's like going in your house. But if you leave it unlocked, and I think that's why Representative Senator Carter's bill is so on point, because he made a point to say, leave your car unattended.
Unattended. Unlocked.
So when you leave your car unlocked,
right.
they didn't have to do anything. All they had to do was pull on the door,
Right,
and
open
it
the
came
door.
open.
Right.
Now, if they break it in, you've committed a
breached that,
felony.
right.
You've breached that. But if you leave it unlocked, then they should get
Gotcha.
you.
Last one, and we're gonna take a break. Last one.
All right.
State Representative, our friend, Representative Edmund Jordan,
Yes, good
has
brother.
put forth a bill. He's authored a bill to limit police pursuit or have pursuit protocols in place. State Representative from West Baton Rouge Parish,
Yes.
introduced legislation on pursuit protocols this year when the legislative session convened. Representative Jordan, who was from Bruley, Louisiana.
Bruley.
Okay, I guess the S is silent.
It is.
Bruley, Louisiana, said he wants to approach the matter from a civil perspective. The move comes in response to a deadly New Year's Eve accident in West Baton Rouge Parish.
Yep.
I think 2 weeks ago, Caddo Shreveport, we saw a similar situation. As police officer David Cawthorn, 42, was arrested and booked Sunday on 2 counts of negligent homicide and 1 count of negligent injury after car crash left 2 teenage girls dead and a boy in critical condition. Cawthorn was reportedly going 86 miles per hour when he ran a red light in Bruley outside of his jurisdiction.
There's that word again. Jurisdiction.
And hit the vehicle.
You know, the police officer, not to cut you off,
no.
the police officer that resigned, that's been indicted for killing the guy at Villa Norte, one of his issues
one of his issues was pursuing somebody at a high rate of speed, and he hit somebody,
Sure
and now
did.
that person is suing the city.
That's right.
District Attorney Tony Clayton, shout out
Yes,
to Tony Clayton.
Tony Clayton.
Said he wants to prosecute the police officer as a criminal matter. He said, Representative Jordan says, I applaud Tony Clayton for prosecuting this in this matter, but at the end of the day, a lot of district attorneys will not want to be put in a position where they're prosecuting law enforcement.
They ain't
Jordan
gonna touch
says,
that.
right. Jordan says he wants to address the matter from a civil perspective. He wants to act strict liability and potentially add punitive damages. If we can go with strict liability, maybe we can go with gross negligence standards and do it that way. I'm not opposed to the tiered system, but my issue is that if you say we're allowed to do high-speed chase, if we believe the guy is a murder suspect, but not allowed if it's a stolen car, a gallon of milk or whatever.
Yeah. It's almost like they talk about the whole wheel of force continuum, that you are allowed as a police officer to use the amount of force that's given to you. So if I got a stick, then the police officer has a stick. But if I have a gun, the police officer has a gun. I think what he's doing is that, and that makes a lot of sense. Because if you got a murder suspect, you got loss of life, that makes sense to get that kind of pursuit. But, somebody ran a red light or he stole a donut. You don't need to be risking everybody going 100 miles an hour because you want to open up the charger today.
Right.
That's a bad look.
I'm going to put it from this perspective. We live in such a technology savvy age where we have plate readers, we have dash cams, we have all of this stuff. If you're telling me you cannot you got GPS and all this stuff. You're telling me you cannot, cell phones.
Right.
If you cannot get the plate number.
Right.
And say, you know what? We're going to call this off.
Yeah.
And somebody says, well, what if they, in the meantime, while they out there, they go kill 2 or 3 other people? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are ways to catch criminals.
Of course.
That don't require you going 80, 90 miles down Jewella Avenue.
Putting the public at risk.
Right. Well, Miss Essie is trying to leave out her house.
Going to church.
Or the young lady who's got her baby in the back seat with her.
That's right.
Is trying to get her child to daycare.
Right.
And you pull out.
Right.
Now you going 90 miles per hour.
Right.
On a crowded street on Mansfield Road.
Right.
At 5 o'clock.
And the other thing that people need to realize, whereas we may have trained an officer as part of his or her academy training to drive highest rates of speed, the person that you're chasing hasn't. So they just they're driving like, what's the game that the kids play?
Grand Theft?
Yeah, Grand Theft. Literally riding through, knocking people over in the whole 9 yards because you chasing them and they trying to just get away, as opposed to, like you're saying, call it off. The police vehicles have plate readers. You got the plate. The plate is registered to an address. Right. You say, hey, look, he's at 1234 Murphy Street. Right. Let me use a better street, Ellaby Road. Right. So meet him on Ellaby Road because eventually he going home.
Or your cross streets too.
Right.
Your 911 folks back at command know the cross streets.
Right.
If I'm on Jewella.
Right.
If I'm on Jewella, I need some officers. This is the description of the car.
Right.
I need officers on Hearn.
Right.
I need officers on Greenwood Road.
Right. Hollywood.
I need officers on Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I need officers on North Market.
Mm-hmm.
And I need officers on Burcoon.
Yeah.
And I may be going too far saying North Market.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
I think you can probably do Kings Highway.
Yeah, but the point is, I'm waiting for him. So if he blows by, I stop the traffic. Throw the spikes out there, boom, he flips and does whatever, as opposed to running hot. Like you said, it's Wednesday, people trying to go to church.
Right.
Big mama trying to get some chicken on the way to the house, and you and whoever driving through going 100 miles an hour and then tow something up.
Right.
And for what? Because guess what? If they stole a car, the evidence that you stole it, you riding in, you tearing it up. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Well, those are just a look at some bills that are floating through the Louisiana legislature. That's kind of a good segment. We ought to try to do that as the session is in. Just take a look at some of these bills, talk about them, call some of these legislators up. I do know we're lining up our friend Edmund Jordan, Royce Duplessis.
Yes.
And there's another legislator that I know that we're supposed to be trying to bring in to talk, Mandy Landry, to talk about some of these bills that are floating through the legislature, and then some members from our delegation just to check in to see how they're doing. Right. We will be right back with Issues That Matter after this break. Listen and stay. Thank you. Yeah, Calvin.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
And we are back. We want to thank you for listening in today. We've had a very enlightening conversation. We'll have some guests joining us on Thursday. We always like to invite folks into the studio to be a part of the conversation. And, again, you can always call in and be a part of our conversation here today. I know we've kind of been off lately, but we're taking care of business. We're taking care of this community, trying to be out. We're not perfect, but we try. And that's what I want to continue to emphasize to folks is nothing has to be perfect. Nothing is absolute. And what I often say, and you hear Calvin say it as well, is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If you're out there trying, keep trying. If you have to stop and start over, give yourself the grace to stop and start over. The world has changed. COVID has changed a lot, and it's made folks kind of stop and realize, I have been doing things this way, and maybe I can change it up and do it some different now. And so give yourself, I like to say, give yourself the grace, give yourself the permission, give yourself the flexibility to pivot and do something different. But always just know that this show is about this community. This show is about educating. We're not here to try to indoctrinate anybody. Johnny is opening this platform up to educate this community. There's an election going on. If you have not gone to go early vote, get your butt up and go early vote. We've opened 2 locations. You got one in downtown, you have one in South Shreveport. Folks, go early vote. We have an election on the ballot for city marshal. And don't think the other side is not looking. Don't think the enemy is not looking. They're looking at these. And what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing some of these key races. They're going to be trying to put them in the spring. They're going to be trying to put them on these off election cycles because they know we don't rally when it's election time. Please go vote. And I'm going to tell you who I'm voting for. This is not an endorsement from 97.7, but this is an endorsement from me. I'm voting for James Jefferson. He deserves the job. He's a great guy. That's not taking anything away from the other candidate in the race. I don't want folks to say I got something, but James is a good dude. I don't know if you've ever met James, Johnny, but that's a solid brother. Yes, he's a solid brother. He is nice to everybody who he meets. His family is nice. His son is nice. I mean, you just don't meet people like that in this day and age. You can tell, and you can tell it from the country because James be happy. He be ready to help folks. He be ready to work with people. He be ready to collaborate. And I can tell when something ain't sitting well with him. He kind of back up a little bit. But that's because something in his gut is telling him something is not right. And we need leaders like that, particularly in our law enforcement community. And so please go vote. We've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to go vote. And then you got election day next week. It matters. It matters who's our city marshal. If you know that they put that amnesty day in, the city marshal is the one that's serving evictions. And I know evictions are not good, but it has to happen. And the way it happens, though, they try to do it when kids are not at school. I mean, they try to do it when kids are not at home while they're off at school so that you don't have to be embarrassing the parents and stuff like that. But because they have a job to do, they want to make sure that people get dignity and respect when they come into the city courthouse, not be talked down to or looked down. And you see over in McCurtain County, those folks over there, the sheriff and stuff over there talking about they wish they could still hang black folks and using the N word, dropping the N. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. And if you think them bad apples don't exist and them bad apples want to get their way back into power all across the country, you are wrong. Get out, go exercise your right to vote. People died. And people are still fighting to protect this right to vote because they still fighting to take it away. Do know that we have an obligation and the onus is on us to go get up and go vote. Again, this is 97.7. You've been listening to Issues That Matter. We will see you on Thursday. As the elders will say, if it's the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you. Have a great day.
Issues That Matter with Calvin Lester and Stephen Jackson on WKSH 97.7 The Heat.
The People's Voice 97.7 The Heat.